Admiral Lee Hanna could not move as she watched the screens in Earth's Space Command Center. Her hands shook as she saw the Vortak Empire's giant black ships floating above New Sol Colony like storm clouds. 10 billion humans lived on that beautiful world. It was humanity's greatest achievement among the stars. Commander Park Jae-woo ran into the room. His face was white with fear. Admiral, they are showing this on every communication channel in the galaxy. Every alien race is watching what happens next. The main screen showed Emperor Zalthek. His green reptile skin gleamed under the lights. His yellow eyes stared directly at the camera as he spoke to the entire galaxy. Today you will learn what happens to species who think they are equal to us, he said. His sharp claws pointed down toward the planet below. Watch closely as we teach humans their true place in our empire. Hannah felt her heart stop. Her daughter Kim Yunbai lived down there with her twin sons. They were having breakfast right now in their small house near the ocean. The boys were only 7 years old. They loved to build sandcastles and chase the waves. The first energy blast hit New Sol's northern continent. The explosion was brighter than their sun. Entire cities disappeared in 1 second. Millions of people turned to dust before they even knew what was happening. Hannah gripped the metal rail in front of her so hard that her knuckles turned white. No, 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 she whispered. But the attacks kept coming. For 3 long hours, the Vortak ships rained death on New Sol. They moved slowly and carefully. They wanted everyone in the galaxy to see every explosion, every death, every scream. The alien emperor sat in his golden chair and smiled as he watched human civilization burn. Other species across the galaxy watched on their own screens. Some covered their eyes. Some turned away. But none of them helped. They were all too afraid of the Vortak Empire to say a single word. Commander Jae-woo stood beside Hannah. Tears ran down his face. Admiral, we are getting reports from the surface. The capital city is gone. The coastal regions are gone. The agricultural zones are gone. Everything is gone. Hannah closed her eyes and saw her daughter's face. Yunbai had called her just yesterday. She was excited because the boys had learned to swim. They wanted their grandmother to visit soon. Now they were all dead, turned to ash and scattered by the wind. When the bombardment finally stopped, New Sol looked like a ball of broken glass. No cities. No forests, no oceans, just gray dust and cooling rock. 10 billion people had been murdered while the galaxy watched like it was entertainment. Messages began coming in from other alien governments. The Altaïran Federation sent their deepest sympathy. The Crystal Consortium offered thoughts and prayers. The Merchant Guild promised economic sanctions that everyone knew would never happen. Empty words from cowards who were happy it was humans dying instead of them. But something strange happened in the hours after New Sol died. Humans across the galaxy began to change. The grief and horror transformed into something else. Something dangerous. On Mars, factory workers stopped making consumer goods and started building weapons. On Europa Station, scientists abandoned their peaceful research and began creating new ways to kill. On every human world, ship, and outpost, people volunteered for military service. Not to defend themselves but to attack. Minister Choi Min-jun of Earth's Global Defense Council appeared on screens throughout human space. His voice was calm but his eyes burned with cold fire. Citizens of humanity, he said. Today we learned that the galaxy sees us as entertainment. They watched our families die and did nothing. They think we are weak because we chose peace. He paused and looked directly into the camera. They are wrong. Operation Alien Extinct begins now. We will show them what humans really are when you murder our children. The message spread faster than light itself. Human colonies that had never spoken to each other began sharing weapons technology. Corporations that had been enemies for decades opened their secret research files. Even pacifist settlements offered their resources for the war effort. Dr. Song Hyori, humanity's leading expert on alien biology, volunteered to create diseases that would target Vortak genetics. Engineer Nam Jiziak began converting mining equipment into planet-killing weapons. Captain Yoon Daeho started modifying civilian ships to carry bombs that could destroy entire star systems. The unity was complete and terrifying. Humans had spent centuries arguing about politics, religion, and resources. Now they had only one goal. The Vortak Empire had to die. Every last one of them. Admiral Hannah was promoted to Supreme Commander of all human forces. She stood in her command center and looked at the tactical displays showing human fleets gathering from across the galaxy. They were not large fleets. Humans were still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But they had something the Vortak Empire had forgotten existed. They had nothing left to lose. The first human attack happened 3 days after New Sol died. Vorthak Research Station Epsilon 7 simply vanished. 3 million aliens turned to vapor in less than a second. No warnings. No demands for surrender. No mercy. Then another station disappeared. Then another. The humans were not trying to conquer territory or steal resources. They were erasing their enemy from existence, one target at a time. The galaxy began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Humans had been polite and peaceful not because they were weak, but because they chose to be. Now that choice was gone forever. 3 days after New Sol became a ball of glass, every human settlement in the galaxy received the same simple message. It contained technical blueprints, weapon designs, and a single order: build these. Build them fast. Build them deadly. Dr. Song Hyori had been studying alien plants on a peaceful research station near Jupiter. She grew flowers and wrote papers about how different species could live together. Now she sat in her laboratory creating viruses that would make Vorthak blood boil inside their bodies. Her gentle hands that once planted seeds now mixed chemicals that could kill entire planets. I need samples of their DNA, she told her assistant over the communication system. Get me hair, scales, anything from a Vorthak body. I will make something that hunts only them. On Asteroid Mining Station Series, engineer Nam Jiziak looked at his massive rock-cutting machines with new eyes. These tools could carve through solid stone like butter. If he attached rockets to the biggest asteroids and aimed them at Vorthak worlds, they would hit with the force of nuclear bombs. How fast can we modify the mining equipment? He asked his team. 6 weeks for a full conversion, replied his chief mechanic. You have 6 days, Nam said. Work in shifts. No sleep until it is done. Captain Yoon Dae-ho commanded a fleet of cargo ships that carried food and supplies between human colonies. The ships were big, slow, and completely unarmed. Perfect for hiding weapons that no one would expect. He began installing experimental plasma cannons inside grain containers and missile launchers behind false walls. The weapons he was building had been banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. They were too cruel, too destructive, too final. But humans no longer cared about being civilized. The most shocking thing was how quickly humans worked together. The Titan Corporation and New Earth Industries had been bitter enemies for 50 years. They had fought legal battles, stolen each other's employees, and blocked each other's trade deals. Now they shared their most secret technologies without asking for anything in return. Here are our stealth ship designs, said the Titan CEO during a video call. And our cloaking technology. And our quantum computer codes. Use them to kill every Vorthak you can find. Academic researchers who had spent their entire careers studying peaceful solutions to conflicts began handing over research that could destroy entire worlds. Professor Kim Mingyu had written a famous paper about how to terraform dead planets and bring them back to life. Now he rewrote it backwards, showing how to kill living planets and turn them into space dust. Even the pacifist colonies joined the war effort. The Peace Garden settlement had refused to build weapons for 300 years. Their people believed that violence was never the answer to any problem. But after New Sol, they began providing detailed maps of Vorthak trade routes and military bases. We will not kill, said their leader during a colony meeting. But we will help others kill for us. Admiral Lee Hanna found herself in charge of the largest military operation in human history. She had never wanted to be a warrior. Before New Sol, she had been planning to retire and spend time with her grandchildren. Now those grandchildren were dead, and she commanded fleets that carried enough firepower to crack planets in half. Unlike the Vorthak Empire, which moved slowly and gave long speeches before each attack, humans struck like lightning. They appeared without warning, destroyed everything they could find, then vanished into deep space before anyone could respond. The first target was Vorthak Research Station Epsilon 7. It was a peaceful facility where alien scientists studied new forms of energy. 3 million Vorthaks lived and worked there. They had families, children, dreams for the future. The human attack fleet appeared from behind a nearby moon. No communication. No demands for surrender. No mercy. They fired every weapon at once. The research station exploded like a small star. 3 million aliens died in less than 10 seconds. Before the Vorthak military could respond, 2 more outposts vanished the same way. Mining Station Delta 3 became expanding gas and metal debris. Communication Hub Gamma 9 simply stopped existing. The humans attacked, destroyed, and disappeared like ghosts. The Vorthak Emperor tried to contact human leaders. He wanted to negotiate, to understand what humans wanted. But there was no response. No demands for money or territory. No political speeches about justice. Just death coming from the darkness of space. Other alien species began to watch the war with growing fear. They had always seen humans as the polite newcomers who said please and thank you during diplomatic meetings. Humans brought gifts, followed galactic laws, and tried to make friends with everyone. Now they understood that human politeness had been a choice, not a weakness. When Vortax murdered human children on live television, humans chose to become something else. Something that made the Vortax Empire look gentle by comparison. The Crystal Consortium sent a message to Earth asking for peace talks. The Altaïran Federation offered to mediate between humans and Vortax. The Merchant Guild promised trade agreements if humans would stop their attacks. Admiral Hannah read all the messages and deleted them. Aliens had watched 10 billion humans die and done nothing. Now they were afraid because humans had decided to fight back. But it was too late for fear. Too late for negotiations. Too late for mercy. The humans were not conquering territory or demanding tribute like normal wars. They were erasing their enemy from the universe one target at a time. And they would not stop until every Vortax was dead. 6 months after New Sol died, the Vortax Empire was learning what it meant to be hunted. For 1,000 years they had been the predators. They conquered weak species, enslaved entire worlds, and killed anyone who resisted. Now they were the prey, and their hunters were unlike anything they had ever faced. Admiral Lee Hanna's forces moved through space like deadly shadows. They appeared from the darkness between stars, struck without warning, and vanished before enemy ships could respond. The Vortax never knew where humans would attack next. Every day brought news of another facility destroyed, another world poisoned, another piece of their empire erased from existence. Lieutenant Shin Woo-bin commanded the most feared human unit in the galaxy. His stealth ships carried no weapons or bombs. Instead they carried something much worse, biological death. Woo-bin and his team would land on Vortax agricultural worlds in the middle of the night. They moved like ghosts through the alien farms, releasing engineered plagues into the soil and water. The diseases were designed by Dr. Song Hyori to target only Vortax biology. They killed crops, poisoned livestock, and turned fertile farmland into dead wasteland. Within weeks, entire planets that had fed millions of aliens became unable to support any life at all. Target acquired, Woo-bin whispered into his radio as he watched a Vortax farming settlement from a hilltop. Beginning contamination procedures. His team spread out across the valley, each carrying containers of invisible death. By morning they were gone. Within a month, everyone on the planet would be starving. Major Young Sora specialized in cutting the Vortax Empire apart piece by piece. Her fleets targeted the communication networks that connected different sectors of alien space. Without these networks, Vortax commanders could not coordinate their defenses or call for help when humans attacked. Sora's ships were fast and heavily armed. They would jump into a system, destroy every communication satellite and relay station, then jump away before enemy forces arrived. One by one, the Vortax Empire was becoming blind and deaf. Communication hub destroyed, reported her weapons officer after another successful raid. Enemy sector Gamma 7 is now isolated. Good, Sora replied. Mark it on the target list. We will come back to finish them when they are alone and afraid. Captain Lee Young-ho had perhaps the cruelest job of all. While other human forces targeted military and economic assets, Young-ho destroyed the Vortax soul. His teams hunted down museums, libraries, art galleries, and historical sites. Anything that defined Vortax culture and identity became a target for complete annihilation. The Vortax had spent thousands of years creating beautiful sculptures, writing epic poems, and building magnificent temples. Young-ho turned it all to ash and rubble. He wanted to erase not just Vortax lives, but any memory that they had ever existed at all. The Great Library of Veltar has been eliminated, he reported to Admiral Hannah after his latest mission. 10,000 years of Vortax literature and history have been completely destroyed. Excellent, Hannah replied. When we are finished, no one will remember they ever had a civilization. As the human war machine ground forward, the Vortax Empire desperately tried to negotiate for peace. They sent messages through the neutral Altaïran Federation, hoping to find some way to stop the slaughter. Ambassador Talmor, a tall blue alien with 4 arms and gentle eyes, arrived at Earth carrying Emperor Zalthek's personal peace offer. The Emperor is willing to give humans 3 entire star sectors, Talmor said during his meeting with Admiral Hannah. He offers war reparations of 1 trillion galactic credits. He will publicly apologize for the attack on New Sol. Please, Admiral, surely this is enough to end the killing. Hannah looked at the ambassador with cold eyes. Behind her, a giant screen showed images from New Sol before its destruction. Happy families, laughing children, beautiful cities by the ocean. All gone forever. Tell your emperor something, she said quietly. You broadcast our children's deaths across the galaxy for your entertainment. Now we will broadcast your species' extinction for our justice. There will be no negotiations. No mercy. No survivors. Talmor left Earth that day knowing that the Vorthak Empire was doomed. The humans would not stop until every last alien was dead. Other species across the galaxy began to understand what was happening. This was not a normal war over territory or resources. The humans were not trying to conquer the Vorthak Empire. They were trying to completely erase it from the universe. Some alien races secretly began helping the humans. The crystalline Netherans had been enslaved by the Vorthaks for centuries. They provided detailed maps of enemy military bases and shipping routes. The insectoid hive mind shared intelligence about Vorthak weaknesses and battle tactics. But other species became frightened that human vengeance might eventually target them too. The Merchant Guild and several smaller empires began forming defensive alliances. They built new fleets and fortified their borders, preparing for the day when human fury might turn in their direction. The Vorthak military, which had dominated the galaxy for 1,000 years, began to collapse under human attacks. Their generals had grown soft and lazy from centuries of easy victories against weak enemies. They had no idea how to fight an opponent that struck from the shadows and disappeared like smoke. More importantly, they could not understand an enemy that was willing to die if it meant killing more Vorthaks. Human pilots flew suicide missions into enemy capital ships. Human soldiers triggered explosions that killed themselves along with their targets. The Vorthaks had never faced warriors who valued death over survival. The end came during the Festival of Dominion, the most important celebration in Vorthak culture. Emperor Zalthek stood on the balcony of his crystal palace, addressing millions of his subjects who had gathered to hear him speak. A weaponized asteroid, invisible to all sensors, crashed into the palace at tremendous speed. The explosion could be seen from orbit. Emperor Zalthek's final screams were broadcast across every communication network in Vorthak space, using the same frequencies he had used to show New Sol's destruction. The hunter had finally become the prey. 2 years had passed since New Sol became a graveyard of glass and ash. Admiral Lee Hanna stood in her command center, surrounded by screens showing the collapse of the Vorthak Empire. Their core worlds were surrounded by human fleets. Their military was broken and scattered. Their leaders were all dead. Victory was within reach, but it tasted like poison in her mouth. Captain Bay Saman walked toward her with slow, careful steps. Her face was pale, and her hands shook as she carried the latest intelligence reports. She had once been a cheerful officer who smiled often and told jokes during quiet moments. Now she looked like someone who had seen too much death. "Admiral," Saman said quietly, "I have the report from the Kelthara operation." Hannah took the tablet and read the numbers. Her stomach twisted into knots. The agricultural world of Kelthara had been completely sterilized by human biological weapons. Every farm, every city, every living thing on the planet was dead. 800 million Vorthak civilians had died in their sleep as the engineered plague spread through their air and water. 800 million, Hannah whispered. When had numbers this large stopped feeling real to her? When had she begun thinking of mass murder as just another military objective? She remembered the first human attack on a Vorthak outpost. Back then she had felt sick about killing 3 million enemy soldiers. Now her forces regularly exterminated entire planets and she barely noticed. The same unity that had made humans unstoppable was also preventing anyone from questioning what they had become. "Admiral," called Commander Kang Jihun from his sensor station. "Long-range scanners are detecting a large convoy moving through the outer systems. Analysis suggests it is a refugee fleet." Hannah walked over to study the tactical display. Hundreds of small ships were fleeing from the Vorthak core worlds toward neutral space. The vessels were old, damaged, and completely unarmed. They were packed with civilians trying to escape the human war machine. "Estimated numbers?" she asked. "Approximately 50,000 individuals," Jihun replied. "Mostly families with children. They pose no military threat whatsoever." Colonel Park Sunwoo looked up from his weapons console. His finger hovered over the firing controls that could launch missiles at the refugee convoy. "Orders, Admiral? Do we intercept and destroy?" For the first time since New Sol died, Admiral Hannah hesitated. She stared at the display showing the fleeing ships and tried to imagine the terrified families inside. Were there children aboard those vessels? Elderly grandparents? Ordinary people who had never hurt anyone? She remembered a meeting with the Altaran peace delegation several months ago. They had presented evidence that most Vorthaks were actually enslaved subjects of their own empire. The ruling class had controlled everyone else through fear and violence. Many of the aliens now fleeing had probably celebrated when Emperor Zalthek died. But her officers were watching her, waiting for the order that would maintain Operation Alien Extinct's perfect record. They had never shown mercy to any Vorthak. They had never spared a single enemy life. To hesitate now might be seen as weakness. Admiral? Colonel Sunwoo asked again. The convoy will reach neutral space in 6 hours. If we are going to stop them, we need to act now. Captain Salmon stepped closer to Hannah. Ma'am, intelligence reports indicate that many of these refugees are former slaves who were freed when we destroyed their masters. Some may have been imprisoned for decades. Hannah closed her eyes and saw her daughter's face. Kim Yunbai had been a teacher who worked with refugee children from war-torn worlds. She had always believed that innocent people deserved protection, no matter where they came from or what their species had done. What would you want me to do, Yunbai? Hannah whispered to herself. She opened her eyes and looked at her officers. Some were eager to continue the killing. Others looked troubled, as if they too were beginning to question what they had become. The perfect unity that had held humanity together since New Seoul was starting to crack. We escort them to safety, Hannah said finally. The convoy is not to be harmed. The command center fell silent. Colonel Sunwoo stared at her in shock. Admiral, with respect, our orders are to eliminate all Vorthak presence in this sector. No exceptions. I am changing those orders, Hannah replied firmly. We will escort the refugees to neutral space and ensure their safe passage. Half of her fleet commanders protested immediately. Messages flooded in from other human forces demanding an explanation. Some officers threatened to disobey her orders and attack the convoy anyway. The unity that had made humans the most feared force in the galaxy was suddenly breaking apart. Admiral Park Hyun-woo, commander of the 3rd Human Fleet, sent an angry transmission. Hannah, you are making a mistake. If we show mercy now, every alien species will think we have gone soft. They will stop fearing us. Maybe it is time they stopped fearing us and started respecting us instead, Hannah replied. General Kim Sung-min, leader of the Human Ground Forces, was even more direct. I am officially protesting this decision. You are betraying everything we have fought for. Every human who died deserves justice, not mercy for our enemies. But Admiral Hannah had made her choice. She ordered her personal fleet to intercept the refugee convoy and provide protection. As her ships moved into position around the fleeing Vorthaks, she knew that humanity would never be the same. The war against the Vorthak Empire was almost over. But the war for humanity's soul was just beginning. The refugee convoy incident tore humanity apart. For 3 months, human fleets pointed weapons at each other instead of at their enemies. Admiral Lee Hannah found herself facing a military court, accused of treason by her own officers. The commanders who had followed her into the darkest war in galactic history now wanted her executed for showing mercy to 50,000 Vorthak civilians. General Kim Sung-min led the prosecution. He stood before the judges with fire in his eyes, pointing an accusing finger at Hannah. This woman betrayed every human who died at New Seoul. She let our enemies escape when we could have finished them forever. Her weakness will be seen across the galaxy as proof that humans can be defeated. The trial was broadcast on every human world and space station. Families who had lost loved ones watched from their homes, trying to decide what kind of species they wanted to be. Some demanded Hannah's execution. Others supported her choice to spare innocent lives. Captain Bae Saman testified on Hannah's behalf. She stood nervously before the court, her voice shaking as she spoke. I was there when we destroyed Kelthara. I watched 800 million civilians die from our biological weapons. The Admiral was right to show mercy. We were becoming the monsters we set out to destroy. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Evidence was presented about Vorthak war crimes, but also about human atrocities committed during Operation Alien Extinct. Witnesses described planets turned to glass, populations poisoned by engineered diseases, and entire civilizations erased from existence. In the end, Admiral Hannah was acquitted by the narrowest possible margin. 7 judges voted guilty, 8 voted innocent. The decision split humanity down the middle, but it sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humans could still be reasoned with even in their darkest hour. The surviving Vorthaks numbered fewer than 50 million individuals scattered across refugee camps in neutral space. Their empire was gone, their worlds were dead, and their culture was nearly extinct. They had nowhere to go and no one to protect them except the humans who had destroyed everything they once knew. But humanity surprised the galaxy once again. Instead of completing the genocide, humans established military governance over the refugee camps. Unlike the brutal methods the Vortak Empire had used to control its subjects, human administrators created rehabilitation programs and fair legal systems. Dr. Song Hyori, who had once created biological weapons to kill Vortaks, now worked to heal their sick and injured. Engineer Nam Jiziak used his skills to build new homes for displaced families. The same humans who had brought death now brought hope. War crimes tribunals were established to judge the former Vortak leadership. But these courts also freed millions of aliens who had been enslaved by their own empire. Reparations were paid to former slaves. Cultural preservation programs saved what remained of Vortak art, literature, and history. "We will not erase what they were," announced the human administrator in charge of the refugee camps. "We will only erase what they did to others." 1 year after the refugee convoy incident, Admiral Hannah received a new unofficial title that followed her wherever she went, the Mercy Admiral. She was invited to address the reformed Galactic Council in chambers overlooking a special memorial garden that contained soil from New Sol. Every species in the galaxy sent representatives to hear what humanity had learned from their war of vengeance. The chamber was completely silent as Hannah walked to the podium. Behind her, a wall-sized window showed the memorial garden where flowers grew in earth taken from her daughter's grave. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying to billions of listeners across known space. 2 years ago you watched our children die for your entertainment. You did nothing to help because you thought we were too weak to matter. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked ashamed. Others looked afraid. "We proved you wrong about our weakness," Hannah continued. "But in doing so, we almost proved you right about something else. We almost became the evil that we fought against. We learned that this galaxy mistakes kindness for weakness and strength for evil." She paused and looked directly into the cameras broadcasting her speech. "Humanity will be neither kind nor evil. We will be just. True justice requires both the strength to punish those who commit atrocities and the wisdom to stop before becoming monsters ourselves. We will protect the innocent, punish the guilty, and remember the price of both mercy and vengeance." The speech established humanity's new role in galactic affairs. They would be the guardians who prevented other species from suffering what New Sol had endured. But they would also be the judges who decided when enough blood had been spilled. Captain Kim Taeyong commanded the memorial fleet that patrolled former Vortak territory. His ships ensured that the refugee camps remained safe and that no other species tried to exploit the power vacuum left by the Empire's collapse. Every year on the anniversary of New Sol's destruction, memorial broadcasts played across all galactic communication networks. But these were not messages of revenge or hatred. They were reminders of what happened when civilized beings chose to watch genocide as entertainment. Taeyong stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sunrise over New Sol's slowly recovering surface. Plants were beginning to grow again in the radioactive soil. Animals were returning to areas that had been dead for 3 years. Life was slowly winning its battle against death. He thought about how humanity had changed during the war. They had gone from victims to avengers to guardians. The galaxy would never again mistake human restraint for weakness. But more importantly, humans would never again mistake vengeance for justice. The war was over, but humanity's real work was just beginning.